Are you ready to unleash your full potential and become unstoppable in your success and leadership?
Welcome to the Unleashed and Unstoppable podcast, where we provide powerful insights and strategies for coaches, corporate leaders, and entrepreneurs. I'm Alexanne Carter.
And I'm Carol Register, and we're certified master neurocoaches who are passionate about helping you overcome your limiting beliefs and optimize your performance.
Each week, we'll be sharing actionable tips and strategies using neuroscience, from interviews with industry experts to solo episodes, to help you lead a life of power, purpose, and possibility on your own terms.
Join our community of like-minded individuals. Hit subscribe now, and let's be unleashed and unstoppable together. Woo! Wildly ambitious leaders who want to be and are, by the way, unleashed and unstoppable. We are beyond excited every week to bring you the most powerful information that will absolutely transform your life. And today you need to know we've got Lorna Sherland. She's going to blow your mind with some information that is going to tie in directly with what we speak to you about in the leadership and neuroscience realms. It's going to be fantastic. So stay with us and stay all the way to the end, because we got little things at the end that you're going to want to be here for, right? So hi, Lorna. It's so good to see you. Oh, Lorna, I do want to let our listeners know that right now I've got running a Principles of Wealth program. It's a self-study, 10 minutes a day at your convenience, so that you can absolutely step into living that life of abundance and freedom in heart-centered alignment that you want to live. So check that out in our show notes. Lorna, welcome. I'm so glad you're here. Tell us all about you. I am so pumped, and I know you are too, Alex.
Ladies, I am so super excited. It took us a minute to get here, but I'm really excited that we're here. I know we started a conversation before we turned the cameras on, but I am glad to be in your presence today. I know that you guys are doing amazing things in the world, impacting leaders to step into their greatness, and you're doing the thing. You're doing the thing that we are called to do. So I acknowledge you both for your stand for humanity and staying in it, right? What is this? What episode is this again?
This is
like
124, I believe.
I mean, who does that, right? A lot of so before I introduce myself, let me just say this. A lot of entrepreneurs start these podcasts, and when they don't get the immediate results, they stop. So kudos to you and your leadership in staying consistent to be at 124 episodes. That's amazing. So,
and I just want to point out that Lorna, she was in the leadership room with me doing leadership work when, the idea, the birthing of the podcast came to form. So Lorna, you have been really especially for myself and on my leadership journey, there along the way. So
it's exciting. Right?
Yeah. Sorry, Carol?
Instrumental.
Yeah. So it's exciting to have you here, now that we're in past the 100th episode, and to finally have you here and just dive into leadership and wealth
and all the things.
We are in our third year of recording, so we are super excited. Okay,
super excited.
Let's spotlight you. What's happening in your world? Yeah.
What's happening in my world? A lot of things. Well, first, let me say, I just love the fact that my journey has been what it's been. Now my mission is to impact 10,000 female entrepreneurs by the year 2029. So in the next 5 years, and then I'll change that goal and make it another goal. The impact that I want to create is the ripple effect. So if I can impact driven female entrepreneurs who are stuck in their business and their life to find that next right step so that they can create the income that they want and live the life that they want to live by using strategic partners to help them to build, then that's, I would have accomplished my mission, right? So that's where I'm at right now. So really just stepping into coming on platforms like this and inviting people into my world. Let's have a conversation to hear why you're not doing what you're doing. That's why I'm so excited for you guys who consistency is one of the pieces that if you're building a business, or if you're just starting, you got to be consistent. If you're already in it, you got to stay consistent. If you're scaling, well, you got to actually be even more consistent by building that team that's going to help you to like expand and hence cause the wealth. And it depends on also what your definition of wealth is. So we can talk about that as well, because wealth can be a lot of different things to a lot of different people, right? Wealth is not just money, right? It's not just like cash. So there are a lot of rich people who are miserable.
Yes, this is very true. This is part of my platform and what I speak into, because being wealthy and yet living in scarcity and avoidance and overwhelm is a huge part of my journey and what I have walked through. It's one of the reasons I teach those principles of wealth, because principles are universal laws, just like electricity. And they bring us into alignment, as I know you well know. So how long have you been coaching, Lorna? Tell us a little bit about your story.
You know, Carol, thank you for asking that question, because somebody else asked me that the other day. And I have it in my head that I've been coaching since I've been in the transformation world, which would make it about 7 years.
Wow.
But I've been coaching for over 20 years. It's what I do in real estate. I just didn't know I was doing it, right?
Yeah.
It's how I, in my first year in real estate, I closed 25 deals. Who does that? No team. Right? But when I think back on it, I realized that I've always been a coach, right? And even in the real estate world, I was involved in the Women's Council of Realtors at one point. I was coaching then. So I've been coaching for a long time, over 20 years. And I just didn't call it that. So jumping into transformation, coaching, leadership, business strategy, connection, that I just honed in on in the last, I would say, 4 years. I honed in on that specific topic that I want to support women with. So
Would you say then it's your gift, and that it's not only a gift, but you've added the skill to your gift or your talent? And leading into, Alex, you know what it makes me think of immediately is identity, the being.
Ooh, let's go. Let's go. You know, I don't know how to impart with emphasis to entrepreneurs to really figure out their identity, because I was on another podcast this morning. I was telling you guys, it's the same thing we're talking about. We have been so programmed into a created identity. And if you're not willing to look at it for yourself and be like, okay, is this really who I am? Is this me, or is this somebody else telling me who I am? That's a hard.
Authenticity. Yeah.
It's hard to look at though, right? Because it's not comfortable, right? And one of the things we talk about in leadership is getting comfortable with being uncomfortable, because you got to unlearn all the things that you've been taught for so long that are not you, right? You get sick. The other day I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's telling me about a friend who is sick, right? Something ain't right, something ain't right, something ain't right. She's been going to the doctor for 2 years. The doctors can't find anything. And I'm sitting there going, okay, great. Let's see what else. And she went to do another test. They can't find anything. The reason I believe, and I'm not a doctor, so full disclosure. However, with the neuroscience stuff that I've learned and tying that into leadership, I've learned that the emotional piece of you causes more sickness and diseases than anything else. Anything else. Right? And if you're not willing to look at it, to step into that awareness of, okay, the mind is the power source, right? The body is just symptoms. It's just the body's giving you symptoms of what the mind is saying. So if you're not willing to get into that awareness and get quiet enough to hear it, then you're going to be going to the doctor, you're going to be going to the therapist, you're going to be going all to the things and not realizing that you have the power. But it's up to you to realize it, step out of the old rules, step into your rules and create, well, not even create, but live your authenticity.
Yeah.
Right. And that will solve a lot of problems.
I know.
You know, so
it reminds me of the new science too. We know now that the subconscious is not just in the brain, it is in the body. And there is a gut brain, there is a heart brain that are communicating more regularly with our brain than the brain is with them. So it's so powerful, right?
And we have to say like transformations in an inside job, right? Because it really is like what is going on internally, right? We don't see it, but it's all like the blind spots. It's all internal of really unpacking all of that. And as you said, Lorna, it's willing to one, get uncomfortable, right? It's willing to get quiet. It's willing to be curious, to really look at, okay, so what is going on? What's happening? What am I up against? We spoke a couple weeks ago with Jeremy, a little bit, even like you can sense the cognitive dissonance going on because you know that there's a misalignment between the heart and the brain. And so when you're so busy though, right, and you're just on that hustle bus and going in, day out, it's sometimes challenging to create that space. But so just lean into what Lorna is saying here, right? And I mean, Carol and I talk about this all the time. We're always driving into the importance of really looking at what's happening, and we're changing day in and day out all the time, right? And so our identity is constantly shifting, right?
Absolutely.
From morning, noon, and night sometimes, right? Depending on what you're up to and just how it changes. And so I'm curious for you, Lorna, as you said, like the realization of, you've actually been a coach for over 20 years, but really honing in these last 4 years. What did you notice you were up against in terms of leaning into that shift, or what are the things that supported you in embodying that new identity, right? Because it's a constant you're constantly transforming, and your identity along the way. But for the listener who is, because I really feel for high achievers and as women, we are really constantly up against this daily, right? Sometimes daily, right? Sometimes multiple times a day. So how have you been able to embody that, or shifted, or really hone in on that? Like, what are the tools that have supported you through that piece?
So I'll thank you again for that question, Alex, because so important to share the story, right? And I'll answer it with a story. I remember
my favorite part.
I remember when I about 2000, I think it was 2006, 7, 8, somewhere around there. In real estate, I actually almost ran off the road because I fell asleep at the wheel of the car because I was working 15 hours that day. I think I started at like 6 o'clock as soon as it was light out. And I was doing the last run for the last property I had to inspect. And I remember vividly my eye closing, but I don't remember opening my eye. And the car kind of like swerved, and I went and I pulled off the road, and I sat there. That was that moment that was like, what in heaven's name? Right? But then I started thinking, and after that was when I started this journey of, like Alex said, curiosity. Why is this happening? Am I not doing what I want to do? But it wasn't that. It wasn't just that happened. It was the wake-up call for me to say, what you've been doing up until now isn't working. Right?
Yeah.
And that started the journey. So then I went, like I said, I started with T. Harv Eker and did a couple of his weekend workshops. Then I started hiring coaches and mentors and ended up in Landmark. Well, Landmark was great. So I'm giving you tools that I used in order to shift my way of thinking about how I was showing up, right? And obviously got to the place where that's where I met you guys in Hardcore Leadership, that actually showed me even more deeper, on a deeper level, as to what was going on with me. Because people was blaming everything, the husband, the kid, the mother.
Being the victim,
The
right?
victim, right?
Yeah.
I mean, everybody, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, it's your fault, right? And then I learned that, everything, like you said earlier, Alex, everything is happening within.
Yeah.
So then in understanding that, then I dove in even deeper. How do I shift it? And I learned the tools to shift. Now I can see it. Now I've become the observer, and I'm still practicing. It's a practice, right? This doesn't happen overnight, y'all.
Yeah. Yeah.
Does
It
not
is a
happen
practice.
overnight.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is a practice. And so for me, it's continuing to hone in on the skills of, paying attention, raising my awareness and making those shifts and applying the tools, right? And the rewire process is a new realm for me of understanding how the brain works and the different sections of the brain that we make decisions from.
Yeah.
That is revolutionary. If we can get entrepreneurs, business owners to understand how their brain works, imagine what they could create.
Yeah,
Just
exactly.
imagine, because they're stuck in the doing, right? Because they're doing based on a false identity and a false understanding of why their purpose, right?
Yeah.
That's just my belief. I don't know if y'all are agreeing with me or not, but that's just how I think
100%.
about it.
Yeah.
And so if you understand how the brain works and now can be fully aware of what's happening in the moment by being present, then it's a game changer, right? Because then now you become this person who you could be standing here, the stuff is happening, and you'd be like, oh, okay, got it, and then you get the power back to respond in a way that supports yourself, your well-being, and the people around, right?
Alex,
So
I'm hearing a certified neuro coach right here. What are you hearing?
Yeah. Well, and as you're talking, Lorna, what I mean, one, it's that control, like it gives you that control piece, but it also gives you that awareness to question, right? Because that's the thing, like we don't even realize when research says like 95 to even 97% of our daily actions, decisions come from the subconscious, come from the programming. Well, I mean, that starts from the moment you're born, right? It starts from society and your parents and what you see, what you witness, what you hear. I mean, television, books, like all, like, reading the Worthy book right now, and they're talking about how for women, how we look at fairy tales and it's all about the man who saves the woman. And it was just like, when I realized that, it's like, whoa, when you take a step back and just have all this awareness of society and like societal programming, this gives you now the power to question and ask yourself, how does it serve me? How does this serve me? My vision. I know that we want to talk a little bit about that, right? Our mission. Like, it's so cool to realize, like, oh, it doesn't have to continue to be like this. Like, I have the power to change. And that's why Karen and I love the neuroscience. We love doing this. We love bringing this to our audience to really help them realize, like, oh, I actually have the power to change things. I don't have to continue to live like this. Right. So I mean, I know that Carolyn are excited you're so excited about this because of just the possibility that gets created when you have this knowledge and understanding of how the brain works, and you actually can change the trajectory when you have this understanding of
you can create your reality.
Create your own reality. Exactly. It's a powerful stance. It's a, and again, things may be happening around you. And that's where the power too is, right? Like things may be happening around you, but you're like, okay, I see it happening. And then what do I get to be responsible for within that process, right? And yes, we are creating it all by the response, right? We're creating it all by the response. So that's something that is a hard nut for a lot of people.
It ties
Right?
directly back to the Cinderella story. Think about the Cinderella story, which is spread across many, many cultures. There's a Chinese Cinderella and a Native American Indian Cinderella. Why? Because she recognized something outside of the circumstances that she was in. Exactly what you're saying. And I
Yep.
love that story for that reason.
Yeah. She created her reality, right? And people just look at it as, oh, the prince saved her. Da, da, da. Look, that story was giving us a lot of juice, right? It was giving us a lot of information. Well, we probably and so that leads me to talk about vision, right? She had a vision of being in a relationship with somebody who loved her more than her own family did, right? And so she created that from her vision because it wasn't like it wasn't her reality. She didn't it was not happening for her. Every time they went out, she was the you know last child of doing other things. You remember the story.
Sweeping
And
the ashes.
exactly, right?
Yeah.
And then she realized that she had the power. She had the power, and she took the opportunity because the woman, the fairy godmother, gave her an opportunity. She could have said no.
Yeah.
Right? She could have said no. And so how many of us are saying no to opportunities because we're so stuck in the way we're used to, right? And not being curious to see, okay, what else is possible, right? So where are people in business stuck in their way of thinking? I've been in business for 30 years. This is the way I've always done it.
Yeah.
Right. And the what's coming up for me to mention right now is the idea that a lot of people are like, well, if it's not broken, don't fix it. Yeah, but you could shift it. There's nothing to fix, but you can shift, right? And what would that look like?
In a way,
So
that statement is, listener, I really want you to lean in because that statement is an excuse to play small, to
absolutely.
stay in what's wired in, to stay in the comfort zone. But the reality of it is, when we're not growing, we're not staying right where we are. We're not, it's not, Alex and I have talked about, it's not truly a comfort zone. It's really a place of tension because we're either moving forward or we're going backward. It's not
Absolutely.
the middle ground that, our brains want to keep us safe and keep us in that place. But when you recognize that if it's not broke, don't fix it, is in reality something where it can hold you back when you are meant for more. And you have to ask yourself, am I meant for more?
Yeah.
And have an awareness of, oh, okay, this is not the growth zone. This is not the play big zone.
Well, it's like contentment, complacency, right? Which if you're listening to this and a high achiever, that's not really a place where you like to hang out, right? Like, so it's so powerful to lean into.
It catches all of us. Sorry.
Oh,
yeah. And that's the thing, right? We as driven, high performers, yes, we do experience that. However, and this is the part that's beautiful, right? The power that we hold, we recognize that power. And yes, we go through the spaces of that experience of, oh, this is comfortable. I don't want to do this today. Right. I want to do this. Right. And how quickly do we shift that? That's the power, right? People who stay in complacency, they tend to stay there longer than but we're all human beings. We're going to have the experience, even with the tools. I'm not saying that we're superwoman and supermen, right?
Yeah.
When I talk about the plateau is just that. You're going up the mountain, and then you plateau.
Mm-hmm.
High achievers have plateaus. The trick is to recognize it, number one, get the support, number two, and then keep it moving, number three. Right? So I think that we do experience it. It's just that we respond to it in a different way. And that's what causes the results, right? So
that's why you talk about burnout all the time, Alex, in line with what you're saying. It's interesting the way our brains process too, and how, for me, one of the things that has happened is that I can turn now a plateau into something productive. So I've had the growth curve and then I plateau, but if I use that as the space to be still and quiet, which you mentioned earlier, Alex, and you both, are very familiar with, then this is where we find solutions. This is where we listen to our being, our intuition, and connect with what's being whispered. And we can't do that when we're in the busy. So for me, like, rest is extremely productive. It is putting my oxygen mask on first. And there's a difference there because it's a choice, an active choice that we can make to use those plateaus for our benefit rather than shrinking back into oh, I'm stuck again, or I'm on the start stop cycle, which is, I know what you're addressing. So I've gotten really excited about that.
it's a powerful, again, I'm a loving, joyful, powerful leader, so I'm gonna use that word all the time, right? It's a powerful place to be. I love the fact that you talked about rest. Rest is a strategy. It really is. As a high achiever who can be on it like for days, right? And without stopping, girl, yes, it took a minute. And if you really follow and track and research all the really high achievers, Elon Musk, Warren Buffett, never seen Warren Buffett upset. He seems to always be at rest. Have you guys noticed that? He
Yeah.
always seems to be at rest. He's never flustered. But even if he's flustered with his words, he does it really quick and then he's out of it.
He
I watch
leads
him. I
out of
study
the
him.
day. Yeah. He's one of the
You know?
people that teaches that it's more, he's the one that teaches that if you want to say yes and be focused and move forward, then you get to say no to a lot of things. And the word decide literally means to cut away, right?
Girl, you're getting me excited again.
So
go ahead, Alex.
Well, I just wanted to loop back because we briefly touched on vision, and we're weaving vision throughout this conversation because it is, I mean, that's where a lot of it starts. So, Lorna, do you want to dive into that a little bit more? So for the listener to kind of follow, get grounded in the vision piece. So then all of the tools and everything we're talking about, it ties into that because that's the grounding. I mean, it's base camp, right? Ground zero really truly is where you're starting from. And so unpack where you come from, because Karen and I talk about vision all the time because, as we said, it's the compass, it's the guiding light, it starts there. And we were talking before we recorded how easily it is to be thrown off track, especially because of the programming and the way that it used to be. So I'd love for you to dive in and unpack that for the listener to be like, okay, so what does it look like? So instead of me getting distracted and going back to, quote unquote, the old ways, for me to stay grounded in the vision, connect to my mission, to continue to move forward, so that the rest comes part of it, that we celebrate any plateaus we experience, and we're creating ourselves time and space to be able to be grounded and connected with what's important to us.
Yeah. So the vision actually starts with the end in mind, right? Like, what do
Mhm.
you want to create in the world? And one of the things that I started adding on to that is the idea of a mission. What I've realized is most people um we think corporations and big organizations like churches, and at least that's my experience, that all these big entities are the ones who have these missions, right? And then entrepreneurs, we have vision, right? And then it ends
Mm.
there. Well, what I have come to understand based on conversations with my clients is that there's a disconnect
Mm.
between vision and mission. There's actually a collapse because
Mm.
a lot of people were collapsing vision and mission, two different things, right? The vision is the lighthouse that's going to keep you on track with goals and plans and all that stuff. The mission is the big thing that is driving the vision, right? So, for instance, I'll give you a quick example because it's fresh in my mind. I have a friend of mine who she has an organization whose mission is to support females in Africa to create small businesses by sewing clothing and then distributing them across the world. That is huge. Do you get how huge that is? And so that's so big that she has to have a vision of, okay, who's going to help me do all this? Right? Because
Mm.
her span of influence may not be as big to fulfill that. But it's so huge, right? Like, how many women does she want to impact? How is the impact going to be created? What do they need? How are they going to get it? All the things, right? So the mission is so big that the vision now she gets to create what I just said, team, right?
Yeah.
Plans, goals, all the things that the organization of the whole thing. Now,
Oh.
most people stop right there. And then when something doesn't work, they're like, oh, that didn't work. Let me do something else. And that's how you get
Mm.
sidetracked,
Yeah.
right? But when you are so focused on mission, right, it keeps the vision alive,
Yeah.
right? And then the goals and the plans that come under it supports the vision. So then when you got to make a decision on, and believe me, guys, I'm speaking to the client, I'm speaking to myself. When shiny pennies come along and you get to make a decision on, okay, should I do that? What I've done, this is how I do it, and I teach my clients the same thing, and it's worked for them as well. I ask the question. I now ask the question, okay, is what I'm about to do in alignment with the vision, and will it get us to the mission? And when you start asking yourself those questions, then it's, when we talk about Warren Buffett, it totally ties in, right? He says no
Yeah.
to a lot of things. This is how he does it. Because if
Yeah.
it's not tied into the mission and the
Mm.
vision, then it's a no.
You can be
But
saying
most,
no to really good things.
and that's possible too, right?
Mhm.
That is possible. You could say no to a really good thing. However, saying no could also mean not now.
Mhm.
Because right now is not the time for it because it doesn't align with the vision.
Wow. Wow.
It doesn't
I was
align.
When I think sometimes to describe like mission is it's not that it's not attainable, but it's so big and out there that it may not be, but that's okay because that's what's going to continue to drive the vision. The
Yes.
vision is something a little bit more measurable. It's a little bit more attainable,
Mhm.
which is why oftentimes, you kind of, you have your like what your 3 year, your 5 year, your 10 year, you kind of have that
Yes.
that vision because it's something that is more attainable, measurable, and then you figure out your goals, right? It's like it's a total reverse engineering of having that bigger
Mm.
I won't say global, right? A bigger global impact kind of vision. And then you kind of go, kind of go
Mhm.
down to more, I guess, global or sorry, not global, local. And then you kind of teeter it down so it's more attainable. So I just want to like, that's kind of what you're saying, right, Lorna? Like it,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Absolutely. I'll give you another example. And I don't remember if it was your PhD that did this. Remember the PhD that had the school. There was a PhD, I think it was PhD 6 that had a school that they wanted to create in Africa. That was a huge mission. And
Mm.
it took the village to stay in vision to get to that goal.
So,
They had to raise, I think it was 180 something $1,000, right? How
yeah,
were they going to do that? Right. And when they got sidetracked, they came back because that mission had had them like, this is what we're doing. We're doing this. They had
yeah,
it's like, so the vision kind of says to you, we there is no other way. We're going there.
yeah,
No, you got to do what it takes, right? And doing what it takes is going to keep you on the road. It's going to keep you on the track. It's gonna keep you on that lighthouse, right? So that piece, adding mission to the vision is I believe the missing piece for entrepreneurs. Like
mm,
tying your business to a mission that's so big
mm,
that it wakes you up in the morning. It actually makes you uncomfortable, but makes you happy at the same time,
yeah,
right? And be like, like, okay, we're gonna do this. It looks kind of tight.
yeah,
We're doing this, right? And so for me, I'll give you this example. Coming onto your platform to talk about this is aligned with my mission to impact 10,000 female entrepreneurs to live from authenticity to make more money so they can live the life they want.
yes,
If that wasn't aligned, I wouldn't be here.
yeah, yeah. That totally makes
You see what?
sense. Yeah,
Well, it,
So,
it 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 helps you get grounded as you're saying, like with Warren Buffett, he knows his confidence, because I think that's another thing too,
yeah,
is that uncertainty of like, am I saying yes to the right things? And there's a lot of that. It raises so much internal that goes on, and
yeah,
again because that's coming from like previous people's expectations, right? Outside influences,
yes.
right? And so it's that guiding light of when you're so clear on this is where I'm heading, you always want to
Mm-hmm,
ensure, and you can ask that. And I know, with corporate and my background, like that was often a question I would get asked, right? Like you've
yeah,
got the mission, then you have like, or even a strategic plan of like what the focus is for the next couple of years. And it took me a while to click into like, oh yeah, I'm saying yes to personal development that's in line with these particular goals that we're working towards. And it's not right now to these, because that's like, 6 to 10 years versus the 1 to 5 year. And so I love that you said that, I find like as a tool. So for the
mm-hmm,
listeners, like, oh, there's all these ideas. It's just having a parking lot of ideas. So it's not like
mm-hmm,
you're saying no, you're just putting it over to the side in the parking lot for now
mm-hmm,
because it's not right now. And what I
mm-hmm,
notice, and this is my productivity hat on now, you become so much more productive because you know exactly the lane that you're staying into
mm-hmm,
because you're moving this particular thing forward right now. And so
mm-hmm,
it's so empowering and really ties into the confidence of the decisions that you're making because
yeah,
you've
mm-hmm.
decided in advance, right, what your mission is, your
yeah.
vision, and now you know exactly what actions to take, decisions to make to move that forward. So
Well,
Absolutely.
in this
Absolutely.
conversation, this also really, I think, a really important piece of this, and that brings clarity when you're setting a mission and vision, is the power of your why. And we actually do an exercise in our coaching called the power of 7 whys, because your why is your fuel and your
Mm-hmm,
motivation when you go back to that. And your why brings incredible clarity when you're like,
mm-hmm,
oh, I've got all of these things. When you start to lean in and go laser on your why, then you're preparing that foundation for your vision and your mission and what it's going to take. And then when the obstacles come along, which they do, or it gets shaky, then you can go back to that why. It's fuel.
mm-hmm. Yeah. And so and that why is the mission,
Yes,
right?
it
Because
is. Yeah.
I'm telling you, it's like it's a downfall because I had that challenge. I'm talking to you about this because I had that challenge,
Yeah. Yeah. I've been right
right?
there with
And
you. Yeah.
yeah, I've had that challenge and I missed it. I missed the mission piece. I missed it.
Yeah.
Because I was like, well, why isn't this working? Da, 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 da. And then I got to look at it. I'm like, okay, there's nothing tied to it.
Yeah.
I have a vision. Yeah, I have a vision. We all have visions. A vision board. Why do you think that people have vision boards and they don't work?
Yeah. Yeah. Well, there's a lot of neuroscience reasons.
A
That's a whole
lot of
other.
neuroscience. That's a whole other thing, right?
Yeah.
And um the why is actually a subconscious way of being. I'm going to put it like that. The why is actually tied to the subconscious.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Because it's something that's innate. It's something that if you don't do it, you're not going to feel fulfilled. And on your way to doing it, you're actually feeling super uncomfortable. Like, it's like, oh my God, how am I going to do this? Right. And at the same time, if you don't do it, it's like you did not accomplish what you were sent here to do. That's how it feels, you know? So it's an interesting journey. It's an interesting journey, but and it's really fun. It's a fun one
Lorna,
because even this conversation is fun.
I want to ask you too, like, um, because of your love of the neuroscience and because, we're wanting to be unleashed and unstoppable in our true power, our gifted power of creating a new reality for ourselves, walking in our purpose, in our vision, our mission. One of the things that is so important for the brain is clarity. And so another thing that we use as tools, and I'd love to hear your process on this, is to utilize our everything we can bring for the brain to have clarity. Temperature of the room, clothes you have on, the all five senses, like painting a picture so crystal clear. And I actually heard an amazing interview with Ed Milet on his podcast because he works with top level government officials, athletes on taking it even deeper on that. So I'd love to hear what it looks like when you help your clients paint a clear picture for their brains.
I don't get that deep. I keep it really simple because most of the clients I work with, they're not neuroscience is not easy to understand, again, especially because it's not something that is normal for us to understand. We usually defer to the doctor, the scientist, the physicist, all the things, the quantum person, all the things, right? And so I don't get that deep. Even yesterday, I was on when I was doing my talk on my event, I use just a simple picture of the brain.
Mm-hmm.
And I only touch on three things to let them know that, okay, this is how you're making your decisions. That's all I do in there, because until they grasp that understanding that their body is what it is.
Yeah.
This is just where I'm at with the neuroscience as well. If you don't understand what's happening, if you can't picture in your brain that, okay, I'm quote unquote not really my body is this machine, and how does it work?
Yeah.
I'm starting to help them understand how the body works, right? Yeah. The mind is not the brain. Now, when I say that, if you're not a neuroscientist or if you're not aware of neurology and how the thing works, then you'd be like, what? Because people think I used to think my mind was my brain.
Yeah.
I know we're getting deep now. I know. It's right? The mind is not the brain. So helping people understand just a simple piece of how they make decisions is where I lead my clients. I don't get into the the colors and all that kind of stuff. I don't do that. Because until they understand, like I said, the beginning, you're going into the rabbit hole of quantum physics. And I'm not an expert at that as
Yeah.
well. So
Well,
I just give
I'll
them the
share
basics.
I'll share with you. You actually don't have to go down a rabbit hole. You can keep it
Hmm.
really simple. It's
Hmm.
just merely when you are sharing your vision, just ask yourself, okay, we want the reason I say this, and it can be simple, is that the brain does not know the difference between the imaginary and the
And
real.
the real. Hmm.
So that you're painting a picture for the brain that is as real as possible. So say, your simple vision is to have a new car, something really simple. And the process would be then, what color is the car? What does it look like? Is it a cold weather snow car? Is it a warm car? Just literally questions around utilizing your five senses. Is it a cloth interior or a leather interior? What color is it? And the reason that utilizing those is to make it as real as possible for the brain.
Yeah.
And then the brain is going to work for you behind the scenes without your awareness. And that's the cool part.
You know what? I misunderstood your question. That's why I gave you that answer. Because as you said that just now, that's exactly how I manifested the car that I have right now.
Okay,
Um,
yes.
I literally, I've always wanted a red car with a terracotta interior. So I imprinted that on my brain. And when the opportunity came to get a new car, it literally showed up in 24 hours.
That's
So
so
yes, I totally
cool.
agree with you.
Yeah.
I guess I just misunderstood your question. You're like, how do you, well, no, so
It's
anyway, they got
it's
two
okay.
answers. So
Yeah, I
that's
love
good.
it. I love it. And I love the fact that you keep things simple because
Yeah.
simplicity is, we tend towards overcomplication, especially if you're a high achiever, you're very driven, and that simplicity brings clarity and
Hmm.
causes things to flow and can
Hmm.
reverse engineer the limiting belief that it has to be hard to be good. That isn't the
Hmm.
truth. That's a lie. And
Right.
so, but yet a lot of us have incorporated that, me included, still dealing with that.
Well,
Yeah,
I'm curious because now you've kind of activated my brain of the curiosity of like your three steps. Like I'm really curious now,
Yeah.
like when you said you spoke at your event yesterday, what are to keep it super simple, what for
hmm
you are those three steps that you walk your clients through to help them
hmm
and ground in that?
you guys are very familiar with this, very familiar. So let me warn you. What do you want? What are you willing to do to get it?
Mm,
And what will happen if you don't get it?
Mm. Wow.
mm. Well, and here's the thing, you tap into the emotions. And
Yeah.
that's what's really powerful. When we're talking about mission, right? We're talking about the power of the why. I was called the why. They'll make you cry. There's an
Hmm.
emotional side. And once you have the
Hmm.
emotional side, that's what's going to fuel you to
Yeah,
go
yeah.
take
Hmm.
action. So with those
Hmm.
questions, Lorna, that's what hit me. It's like those questions are still very guiding because it's going to connect with an emotional piece of like
Hmm.
what's the result if it doesn't happen. When you
Hmm.
realize that, you tap
Yeah.
into that and you're like,
Hmm.
okay,
And
yeah, something needs to
it
shift.
brings you to, huh, do I really want to do this?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah,
Right? Because remember that mission is big.
Yeah.
yeah,
Do I really want to do this? It's just really important to me,
Yeah.
right? What are you willing to do to get it?
Yeah.
yeah,
It's a deep question
Yeah.
because, like you said earlier, Carol,
Yeah.
it's gonna hit the fan. The minute you decide, I'm using your language now. And by the way, language is the other key to this
Mm.
entire process. The minute you decide that this is it, oh, huh, it's on.
Yeah.
So that is exactly why you got to be clear
Yeah.
that I'm going there no matter what,
Mm.
right? So I think that we've been it's such a lie too, right? Like once we have accomplished certain things, we we think, at least I think it was going to be easy to do the next thing. And I was like, oh, okay. No. It doesn't get easier in terms of the accomplishment,
Yeah.
right? It doesn't get easier in terms of the accomplishment. It may get easier with the tactics, but it doesn't get easier with the accomplishment because the accomplishment is getting bigger. So now you have this thing that is like, okay, now you need more people, now you need more resources. Now you get what I'm saying? Now
Yeah.
you gotta become a better manager of the resources, right? And it's a whole different game,
Yeah.
right? Now it's not just you, it's you and the responsibility of everything else, right? How do you manage all of that? So um it's an interesting journey. It's an interesting journey.
Well,
When you're playing big, it's an interesting journey.
and that ties back up to how we started with talking about identity, right?
Yeah.
Because now this evolution
Sure.
of the game you're playing, how you're stepping leadership, and what that looks like,
Yeah.
you get to do the work on that, right? And I mean,
Mhm.
it goes back to the mission and vision of like really tying in, okay, so who do I get to be? Like, who
Who
is
do I
that
get to be?
person
Yeah.
that's creating that mission? Who is that person, that identity of that vision that I'm creating? And so
Mhm.
it's why the work, like you said it earlier, Lorna, like it's a continuous journey, right? And as you
Mhm.
shared your story, like you started here and then you went there and you went deeper because we're like an onion, we're constant
Yeah.
layers and we're peeling back and we're leveling up and we're growing and transforming. And it is, I mean, there's no destination. It's just a continuous journey
Mhm.
of what we get to unravel and unfold on this, on our life's mission, right? And what we're creating.
Absolutely. I always say, um, if you think you've arrived, you've stopped growing.
Yeah.
Mm, yeah.
Yeah.
If you think you know it all, that's the day you died.
Hmm. Yeah. That's the
Honestly, I know.
going backwards. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, 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 yeah.
So,
Because there's so much out there, so much out there.
so as we wrap up, Lorna, what's
Yes.
the last little nugget you want to leave with our listener today when we're talking about
Oh,
mission and vision and identity and just, I mean, even the financial piece? Like I know we
Yeah.
didn't dive too
we
much
didn't
into
touch that.
that. So anything to wrap up on, just to like to touch on that, because I know that that is also a big part of your mission and your vision.
Yeah. What do I want to leave with your audience? Hmm. I know we didn't touch on it a lot, but this is super important because we talked about the vision mostly.
Yeah.
And I don't want to have to go into the conversation. I just want to leave this with them is remember that your values are going to guide you
Mm.
along the way
Yeah.
to your vision and your mission, right? Your values are going to come into play. So be clear on what your values are, your true values,
Mm. Yeah.
not again the created one. You got to do the work to
Mm.
get to your values because once you know your values, then you make decisions differently, number one.
Yeah.
And um you just know how to make wise decisions as opposed to just doing things to do them, right? Or
Yeah.
just doing things because somebody else said do it. And again, that's a learned behavior. So figure out what your real true values are, and that will help you to stay on task, stay on mission for what you are here to create.
Wow. 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 Thank you for sharing your wisdom with us today. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thanks for having me. It was fun. We could talk about this for 4 hours, 5 hours,
I
maybe
know.
10 hours.
Well, if the audience wants to connect with Lorna to continue this conversation,
Yeah.
where's the best way for them to connect with you and learn more from you?
Well, I'm going to give you a link to a free gift that I want to drop off with your audience. It's 5 top strategies to move out of your plateau and skyrocket your income. So a lot of the stuff that we talked about here today are in there, plus more. There's so much more. So I would love for you guys to take me up on that offer and just dive in. And if you have questions, just reach out. You can reach me at Coach Lorna Sherland on Instagram, at Coach Lorna Sherland on Instagram, and Lorna Sherland Official on Facebook. Lorna Sherland Official on Facebook.
Awesome. And we also have those links in the show notes for you as well. Mm-hmm. Lorna, thank you so much for being here, for sharing your passion and your gifts and your wisdom in leadership and just transformation. And
yes.
Yeah. And thank you also to our listener for tuning to another episode of our amazing Unleash Unstoppable podcast. Go and grab your Principles of Wealth. We'll also have the link below there as well for Carol. And we will see you on our next episode next Thursday. Bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of the Unleashed Unstoppable podcast with your hosts, Alexandra Carter and Carol Register.
If you enjoyed this episode and you'd like to help support the podcast, please share it with others, post about it on social media, or leave a rating and review, and subscribe.
That's all for this episode, Wildly Ambitious Leaders. See you next week.